Every year, Filipinos rely on sea vessels as the main form of transport between the country's 7,000 islands. But ill-trained crews, old and overcrowded ferries, and poor safety standards cause more than 200 accidents a year. This has given the Philippines one of the world's worst maritime safety records. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim in Manila. This week on 101 East, we ask, what will it take to put an end to the sea disasters in the Philippines? Most of the ships that sink in the Philippines are small ferries, but larger vessels are not immune. In the worst accident to occur this year, the Princess of the Stars went down in a typhoon, claiming almost 800 lives. HYWEL Davis reports on a shipping industry in trouble.
A catalogue of anguish, tears and the dead. The Filipino passenger ferry network has an unenviable reputation. It averages more than 200 accidents a year, with 7 major disasters in the last 20 years. A trip on almost any ferry shows areas of concern. On this one, for example, to the experienced eye, disaster could be just around the corner. Captain Luis Evidente has almost 30 years' experience as a sailor. For him, the failure of the crew to provide safety instructions or point out the life jackets could mean catastrophe.
There will be chaos because the first thing is that panic sets in, and there will be the question mark as to what do I do now, what's next, you know.
The state and age of the ship are also worries.
This would definitely be more than 20 years old. But for Philippine standards as set by local authorities, this would pass muster. In other words, it complies. And with international standards, of course, you would not be seeing a ship like this sailing.
But it's not just that ferries are old. Large ships are bought second-hand from foreign shipping lines. They arrive in the Philippines in a seaworthy condition. But then they often have extra decks grafted on, allowing more passengers but reducing stability. In the most recent major disaster, almost 800 people died on board the Princess of the Stars. It capsized in a typhoon in June this year. According to one expert, the ship had had substantial alterations.
When it was sailing in Japan, it was only 19,000 tons. And when it arrived here in Manila, they brought that ship to the shipyard, to the dockyard, and then when it came out, it became 23,800. And when it was in Japan, it was only carrying something like 800 passengers. But when it arrived, it was sailing here in the country, it can carry already 1,800 passengers.
It's not just the physical condition of ships here that makes them so prone to disaster. While Filipino crews safely man ships across the world's oceans, many of those in domestic ferries are badly trained at substandard schools. Part of the reason for these substandard crews on domestic ferries is found here. This is Luneta Park in the capital, Manila. Most of the companies recruiting here are foreign. The wages on offer far higher than those on domestic ships.
Traveling in a foreign ship means higher salary. So that is the main purpose of my travel outside.
The combination of poor crews, lax safety regulations and second-rate ships can be deadly. One company in particular, SULPICIO Lines, has had 4 large ships sink in the last 20 years. One incident, the world's worst peacetime shipping accident. A grossly overloaded ferry, the Dona Paz, hit an oil tanker in 1987. More than 4,000 people died. The company has also suffered more recent disasters. The Princess of the Stars was another of their vessels. But despite their record, SULPICIO says it has always followed government rules.
We've been in the business for the past 35 years, and we've always complied with regulations. And of course, there are certain unfortunate incidents which nobody wants. But overall, I guess we've always complied with what is required of us. Otherwise, we won't be in this business.
But for some, that's not good enough. The safety of passengers in the Philippines is the responsibility of a government body, MARINA. Its former head says shipping companies frequently just pay lip service to the regulations.
I put a life jacket on board a ferry. As far as requirements are concerned, they complied. But in case of emergency, can you open the case where the particular life jacket was placed? I had to use a hammer to open it up. In case of an emergency, you cannot be looking for a hammer to bring it down. And when the rock, the life jacket rock falls, and the life jacket falls, they are tied with nylon ropes, and some of them are taped together, that you have quite some difficulties of taking it out. Why? The answer is that they don't like to lose them, because sometimes these life jackets are going to be stolen.
Mr. SUAZO says the callous attitude of ship owners means more coffins and more grieving relatives. But he stresses it's the job of government to rigorously inspect ships and prosecute those guilty of negligence. There's little sign of that. Despite the industry's appalling record, not a single individual or company has ever been successfully prosecuted.
This week, 101 East comes to you on board the Manila Hotel ship, the MS Philippines, and we're discussing the issue of the Philippines Maritime Safety Record. Joining us on the discussion panel, we have Harry Roque, professor at the University of Philippines College of Law. Christopher Pastrana is the CEO of PHILHARBOR Ferries and Port Services, and Vice Admiral Wilfredo Tamayo is Commandant of the Philippines Coast Guard. Thank you very much for being with us this morning on this rather windy morning. Harry, if I can start with you. Seafaring and sea travel is not a new thing to the Philippines. It's been going on for years and years and years, and yet the country averages more than 200 accidents a year. If you could pinpoint one main reason why these accidents continue to occur, why would it be?
I think it would be a failure of the legal system really to address the issue of safety and liability of ship owners. No? Of course, there's an issue about lack of resources. We don't have enough individuals to actually inspect the vessels. But in the long run, it's the fact that you can get away with not following the rules. And as far as the victims are concerned, life is very cheap in the Philippines. It's about $1,000. And if I were in the private sector, I would compute then the cost of compliance with laws and the probable cost of lives that will be lost. And in the long run, it could be cheaper not to follow the law, because they know that the legal system is built anyway to favor the private operators, no? Given that lives are very low and litigation takes very long in the Philippines.
Christopher, would you agree that ship owners are getting away with these disasters?
Well, on the contrary, as ship owners, we are following all the safety regulations. Since we have the largest sea lane in the country, it's really very difficult to monitor all these incidents. You mentioned 200 incidents in the country. The major ones are those that have to be addressed, where there are loss of lives.
So any of the victims would say, well, all of them have to be addressed.
Yes,
I mean, the main thing is, why does it keep occurring? And should ship owners shoulder some of the responsibility?
We are very responsible. We are complying with all the requirements set by government. We even go beyond. But accidents sometimes do happen, and we try to minimize it by complying and making sure that our vessels are safe and can comply with all the regulations set by government.
Vice Admiral,
yes.
Would you say that ship owners are solely to blame, or should the Philippine Coast Guard and the Maritime Affairs also shoulder some of the responsibility?
You know, Valsha, let me put it this way. The Philippines is an archipelago, a maritime country. In fact, we are the second largest archipelago in the world. And to think about our coastline, I believe that we have the fourth longest coastline in the world. So you can just imagine that the shipping activities that we confront on a day-to-day basis. And if I may cite some statistics, we have about 2,000 steel-hulled vessels and hundreds of thousands of motorbangkas.
How many more major accidents are needed to happen, though, before something actually happens? We had the Donapaz,
yes.
4,000 people died there. And there was a lot of public outrage. The government said something should be done. Everyone said something should be done. And yet, June this year, 800 people died in a typhoon sinking of the Princess of the Stars.
Yes.
So how many more major accidents need to happen
Fauzia,
before these accidents
I haven't
stop?
told you about the natural phenomenon in our country. Other countries are lucky because they are below the wind. Our country is above the wind, and the challenge is there. You know, we confront 22 storms a year as compared to the other countries, which probably do not have this kind of experience.
And therefore, you should be far more experienced at dealing with these natural
And even in sheltered
events.
areas, no matter what, some autobancas are still caught by typhoons. But it doesn't mean that the government is doing its job. In fact, we have a lot of measures already in place. The MARINA, which is supposed to be the one in charge of vessel safety, came up with a law, I think about a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and these measures are doing well. Of course, we also have to consider climate change. You know, this is something that's a new phenomenon as well. Okay.
We're going to have to leave it there for just a while. We will come back and continue this discussion. We'll take a short commercial break, but join us for more on the discussion on Philippines' maritime safety record right after the break.